What is happening? Welcome to another painting session with Paige. Tonight we're actually going to be painting clouds, so this is a pretty low-key assignment as I would describe it. And so there are going to be a few things that you need tonight, so stay tuned and I will give you all the details next. If you're new here, my name is Paige. I'm the Chief Pixel Pusher and paintbrusher over at Gumption, and I love putting on these classes to help you experiment with watercolor and just have a little fun with some creativity. So let's see. First off, this class will probably take about an hour. You're going to need some supplies, so we'll hit our supply list real quickly. If you have Kleenex in your house, you're going to want some Kleenex and maybe a paper towel and maybe some Q-tips. If you don't have them, that's fine. If you have some kind of blotting method, that will be good, but you probably have those lying around somewhere. And you're going to need some tape. I'm using washi tape tonight just because we're going to be dividing our paper up into 6 segments, and we just need a little tape for that so we can do some different types of clouds. Tonight we are going to just be using a lot of blues. We're going to be using some grays. We'll be mixing a little bit of purple and using some oranges. So if you have those colors, which you should have those colors, get those out and ready. I will be specifically using quinacridone burnt orange. I'm going to be using phthalo and ultramarine blue, some cobalt blue, and even some of my favorite opera pink. So if you have those too, you can get those out and we'll get running here. I have some updates for you guys tonight, so I'm just going to introduce those before I get too far tonight. For my Patreon folks, I released a video this week for you about creating monsters, so check that out in Patreon if you want to do that with your kids or kids at heart. Also today I released some calendars for your phones and your computer desktop, so you'll want to check those out too if you like to have those. Also, I'm going to be doing a little bit of schedule changing of our class. The first week of the month, I have a meeting that's going to coincide with our class time, and so I'm very excited about it. It's a leadership opportunity in my Sangha, but it just means I won't be able to put on class that day. So we won't have class that week unless I'm able to reschedule it somewhere else in the week. Also, I'm going to be pulling one of the classes to put into Patreon exclusively, but don't be afraid. If you are not a patron, that's okay. I'm still going to be providing classes online here at least twice a month, if not 3 times a month for longer months. So just had those little updates to get out of the way today. So I think now we can kind of head over to our paper and I can show you kind of what we're going to be doing, as well as we can set up our paper. So let's do that now. Maybe. Okay, so you can see here I've got my palette cam here so you can see me mixing paint. Hopefully we have it in focus. We've got something in front of it there. Okay, come on camera. And you can see I did some test paintings here, and this is how we're going to divide our paper up tonight, and just some explorations with clouds. And so let's get to working. If you have any questions, please pop them into chat, and if you're new here, welcome. I'm happy to have you here. I'm so glad you're joining us. I have a lot of new subscribers on the channel, and so I just want to say welcome to those of you who are new. I hope you get some value out of tonight's class. So first I'm going to put washi tape all around my page because I love a clean edge. Just make sure it's tacked down pretty well. I'm going to move this over so you can see what we're doing. And if you have some wins this week for your painting or drawing life or just in general, I'd love to hear those as well. This should be a pretty fun assignment. I definitely have had struggles with creating clouds myself, and so I hope that we can make some beautiful clouds tonight. We've got some great tools at our disposal to help us do that. Okay, so you're going to divide your paper up like so. It does not have to be perfect. These are just practice modules. That is not straight, I'm sure. Okay. And if you're having any trouble with the feed, let me know in chat as well. Everything looks like it's working on my end, but you know how technology is. Okay, so tonight we have a variety of items at our disposal. One is Kleenex and paper towels and Q-tips. So I'm getting my paper towels ready here. And I have 2 water receptacles here that I use. Okay. So I think for our very first cloud combo that we're going to do, we are going to just use one color of blue. And it can be any blue color that you like. I think I will do a phthalo blue. Is that phthalo? That is not phthalo. I guess I'll be doing ultramarine blue. Any blue will do. And tonight, for this first one, we're just going to paint on dry paper. We're not going to do wet and wet just yet. That will be something that we play with. Okay. Okay, I always have to put these at an angle. So if you're ready, you guys let me know if you are falling behind at all. But if you're ready, I am going to start laying down some blue paint. This is a pretty great way to make clouds if you find that you struggle. So if you're a beginner, this might be perfect for you. Even for me, I struggle with clouds. And so while it's still wet, you have to kind of move fast. I'm going to bunch up this Kleenex and I'm going to dab it on my paper here. So this is an easier way to make clouds, and this is kind of my new go-to. I think with a Kleenex you might lighten a little bit more with a paper towel. But as you can see, it's a pretty painless way to do clouds. Now if I wanted to, I could just leave it like this, or I could go in and add some edges with the same color with my brush. You can Soften edges by wetting your brush a little bit. Just soften those edges. So one thing that I do pretty frequently is I take photos of clouds because I always feel like it will help me create better clouds when I can see their shapes, and they come in so many different shapes and sizes. And you can go within the cloud and make some marks there. Soften those edges with your brush. So that's one way to make a cloud. See, I may not have a pencil here. I may have to grab a pencil. So I'm going to leave this here. You keep painting. And tell me how you're doing. How did you find this cloud, this first cloud? So for my second, I might draw a cloud. You can draw a cloud or not, that's fine. You can see I lightly drew that cloud. And I think for this one I'm going to use phthalo blue like I intended for the other one. I think I switched my colors in my palette. So you can see this is the difference between phthalo and ultramarine. Now, if you only have one blue, just use one blue. You certainly don't have to change it up like me. Here. Okay, so you can paint in your clouds and you can follow your line of your drawing. I'm trying to move relatively fast so I don't get this bead of paint stuck anywhere. Okay, and then you can soften your edges. I have dipped my brush in water and cleaned it out pretty good. I'm tapping the brush, and then you can go along some of these edges and just soften them a little bit. You can even paint a little bit in the cloud. You don't even have to soften all the edges, but you can diffuse them a little bit, much like a cloud. And you can paint within them and soften the edges. You can even add other colors. Let's see. So there's another way that you can paint clouds. So oftentimes when we look at clouds, and I think we'll look at an example here, and I will find a good example for us. When we look at clouds, you can see how they have all of these colors in them. So here's the sky. Our clouds have a lot of gray. Sometimes they have yellow in them. And they have just wispy shapes, which really, watercolor can really lend itself to some beautiful clouds because you can diffuse it by working wet and wet or softening edges. Let's see, I'll find another example here. This is a great picture of some clouds. Hopefully you can see that pretty well, where we have a lot of gray here. And we'll try to do some of that next. We're going to work a little wet into wet, and we'll mix up a little bit of gray paint. But just so you know, like you can, if you look at this picture, we have some yellow in the background too, where the sun is hitting it. But they have shadows and highlights as well. So if you're ready to move on to our next little segment here, I'm using a pretty good size brush here, a size 10, and I'm just dabbing it in my clean water. Actually, let's mix up some paint before we get too excited here, and you may need a little time to catch up. So we'll go over to our palette here. I'm going to mix up some gray. Maybe do a little yellow. This has got some green in it. Some blue. Some alizarin crimson. I think I hit the wrong one there. It's kind of a purpley color. Let's see if we can get a little more gray. So I'm adding yellow and I need blue. Okay, so this is a pretty good gray color. Okay, so I'm kind of dabbing off my brush here because I don't want to lose any of that. Okay, so now I have my paint mixed. I am going to use clean water and just lay down some water here. Should be nice and shiny, but not too much water, and maybe you can see this at an angle. There you go. So I'm going to dip my brush into my pre-mixed gray, or my mixed gray that I just did. And I'm just going to dab it in here. And these will be the bottom of our clouds. And you can watch that dispense. You could add blue if you want to. And I am going to grab my Kleenex here. So you could leave it like this. You could even go in with some darker colors and let them kind of mix. I'm going to use my little Kleenex here and dab over the top in some areas. And I'm using about that much here. And you can just kind of carve out your clouds. This really makes a pretty cloud because I used that red and yellow in here, and you can kind of see here. I'm going to zoom in a little if we can see it. That it's really got some pretty colors here, some pretty granulation. And you can keep dabbing. At this point, I would leave this alone because it is going to dry really nicely and has a very subtle kind of cloud feel to it. And I really prefer this kind of look to this look. The magic really is in the wet and wet technique. And again, if you're just tuning in, feel free to throw your questions in chat if you've got some. And you'll have to let me know if I'm going too fast for you guys. We might get to do lots of clouds tonight. Okay, so I think what we'll do is we'll kind of move ahead to another cloud if you guys are ready. Sorry, I have to get some water here. Okay, so I think for this next one, we can do a little bit of graduated color or mixing of colors. So of course, if you've tuned in for much of these classes, you know how I love hot pink or opera pink. So we're going to mix up, I'm going to mix up some pink here. If you have orange or whatever you have, you can mix that. Let's see. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to do like we did with our last set of clouds. I am going to do water first. I've got a little pink in my brush here, but that's okay. I always wind up with a hair on the brush somewhere. And again, I'm using a size 10 brush. This is actually a really great size, I think. And I'm gonna take one of my blues. I think I'm going to run it across the top here. And maybe kind of do some curvy shaping here. And let that kind of work its magic. And then I'm going to take my pink and kind of do the same thing that I did over here. This might be the bottom of the clouds. Okay, then I'm going to grab my Kleenex and dab. And you may have to switch it out to a clean spot. Maybe drag it around there. Whoops. Dab it where you want a cloud. you could take your paper towel and do the same thing and just kind of put it into a point, and then you can dab. This does a little bit better job of picking up that. And you could also use a Q-tip This gives you a little bit more control, and you can work a little bit smaller. And let's see what would happen if we add a little bit deeper pink hue. Like I have a quinacridone magenta. You could use any color that you like here. And you could put these in some spots where you need a little bit more definition. I'm just tapping in that color. Now, QoR really does a great job of spreading, and I think that's because it's their Aquazol that they have as a binder. But it does a really nice job of spreading there. You could even maybe paint some definition in your clouds here. This is definitely something that you could go out anytime that there are clouds out in the sky and go hang out in your backyard and do a little painting and practice cloud making. What are your thoughts, guys? If you're in chat, go ahead and pop your thoughts down in chat. Okay. So I'll kind of clean up my desk here. I was really excited to clean my office last Sunday. It's so nice to come into a clean office. You can find stuff. Whoops. Okay. So maybe next we will do this cloud that was on the cover. So we'll need to mix some colors here, and you'll need an orange. So I have this really beautiful quinacridone, or it's transparent orange. I think it's, anyway, it's a QoR color. It's a transparent orange. It's really vibrant. And if you look in the palette cam here, you can see that. I am a person who doesn't tend to really gravitate towards orange, and I just love this color. So, and we're going to be using a purple for the sky. Now for my original, I used Moonglow. So if you have Moonglow, you can use that. That's a Daniel Smith color, and it is this kind of dusty purple color. But for some of you, as you're going to be mixing your own colors, you don't have Moonglow, I thought we should mix together tonight. So in order to get a really nice purple, you can use ultramarine blue. And I would try to use equal parts ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson, or a deep darker red if that's what you have. Alizarin Crimson is a, I'll show you in my palette here, it's kind of this dark deep red here. So if you have something that's comparable to that, snag that and put it into your mixture with your ultramarine blue. And mix it pretty well, and then you'll see you get this beautiful color. And ultramarine blue has a tendency to granulate and separate a little, so it creates some effects all on its own that are pleasing. I think we can also use the gray that I mixed up earlier. So if you don't have a gray mixed up, but you have Payne's gray, you can use it. Or you can, I mixed a yellow and a red and a blue together and kind of got this light gray color. I don't know if you can see that on the palette cam there. And I think again, we will do this wet into wet technique. So you're going to want to wet your paper, your little block here. And then I'm going to start with the orange at the bottom. And what I love about this orange is it moves. Like, you can just watch it move. Not all colors do that, but that's what I really enjoy about QoR colors. So then I'm going to clean out my brush, and I am going to snag my purple, and you're probably going to want to mix it right before you put it on. And I am going to, in a diagonal, kind of scooch it on here. We'll see if it moves very well. It's not moving as good as my orange. Maybe put a little gray in there. And kind of let it do its thing for a minute. And you can, let's see, I need to get a paper towel. You can use your brush also to dab out your cloud. So I've rinsed my brush out and I'm dabbing it on my paper towel, and you can lift if you like. You can use your paper towel, and you can just leave it to do what it will do. As you can see, my paint is already drying down here. I'm going to use my paper towel So as you're kind of working that, I am going to hit the hair dryer to speed up this process a little bit, because we have a little more work to do in this particular square. That will also give you a little bit of time to keep painting if you like. So I'm going to mute you. Hopefully it won't affect your sound at all. And I'll be right back after I dry this. Really, this kind of looks like a tie-dyed shirt, doesn't it? All right, so mine is dry here, but I'm going to take a smaller brush. I'm going to use a size 6 brush here. Use what you have. And I'm going to take some of my purple mixture that you can see here in the palette cam. I might actually try to put a little more pigment in there. So a little more alizarin crimson and a little more of my ultra blue. And then I'm going to just kind of put a little hill here. I may have to go over this twice. This was inspired from a photo that I took along the way. And then I'm going to put a little tree here in the corner. Just going to dab this guy in. Try to make sure that this is nice and dark. And because it's still wet, water can easily flow in this little channel here. So I'm trying to look and see what our next set of clouds should be. And I will let you finish if you're painting along with me. If you have any questions, go ahead and throw them into chat. Chat is right next to our video here. And I can answer any of your questions. And I'll be curious to know what your favorite set of clouds is and which ones you liked painting most. Okay. So I think for the next set of clouds, I'm going to use a little bit of cobalt turquoise. Or cobalt teal, I'm sorry. If you have a turquoise color, this would be a great color to use. This is fast becoming one of my favorite colors this year to use. And we're going to use this in combination with our orange. And I might need a little more orange here. Okay. So I think again, I will do a little wet and wet technique, where I'm just putting down water first. And then I'm going to hit it with my orange at the bottom. Clean out my brush. And then take my teal maybe trying to do a little more darkness up at the top here. if we can. And lifting a little bit of our pigment here. With our Q-tip, our Kleenex, or our paper towel. Use a paper towel here. My orange paint is drying. Well, it's not too bad. It looks like it's dry, but it's still a little bit wet. And ultimately you'll want to turn your Kleenex or your paper towel around, because you will mix colors if you don't, like I did here. These are great for the little wispy details. And maybe you can even go back in. Well, this is dry, but if it were wet, you know, it'd flow a little bit easier and disperse better. But you can still soften edges with your brush. So Jan, I see your message. Hi, how are you? Sorry that you ran into some trouble there, but it's nice to see you here and that you're able to say hello. It was great seeing you the other day. And welcome. Hopefully you've been able to see some of this tutorial. And you can just kind of keep working your clouds. I find for myself, I have more success when I let them do their thing and then I just kind of leave them alone. But I do feel strongly that this is something that you should definitely practice and practice often, because I can tell you for myself, it's one of those things that I've found kind of intimidating. And it doesn't need to be, especially if you just play with it and have fun. Like in this cloud, I'm going to see I've got some paint here. You know, you can lift too with your brush and a little bit of water to create some texture and some cloudiness too. And this gives these a little bit more dimension that are the drawn clouds. Should we do another couple clouds? What do you guys think? How is your time this evening? So lifting with a brush, clean brush, you've got water in it, you scrub, and some paints lift better than others. So I've scrubbed there and then I just dab it with my paper towel. Okay. Okay, we're at 7:45, so I think I'm going to do just a couple more of these so you guys can continue to play a little bit. If you have any questions, please pop them down in the chat. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. This guy is not going to want to come out of here. Okay. And we'll pull the tape at the end because that is the most satisfying thing. All right, Laurel, let's do another. Yeah, clouds are really hard. So if you are struggling at all with your clouds, don't beat yourself up. Just practice. And I'm glad to hear that, Laurel. It's a really fun, I think it'd be a really fun thing to do when you're camping with your family. If you're the kind of camper who likes to, maybe you don't fish, but maybe you want to do something else in the shade, painting clouds would be a great activity. Okay. So I'm gonna tape off, like I'm gonna do 6 here, but I'm just gonna do a couple or until you guys get sick of painting clouds. And this might be a really fun activity for kids to do if they want to make cloud creatures. Just a thought. So I did a Laurel. I did a video of the animal monsters in watercolor that I put into Patreon this week, and you probably saw that, but I just thought I should let you know. So Jana said that she's not liking her paper. Paint doesn't flow well. Yeah, definitely try it with hot press. Hot press is a little bit different. You know, it doesn't have the texture, but you might have better success. And paper, if you are struggling terribly, it probably is your paper and could potentially be your paints, but paper is a fix that is an easy fix. And I would say, you know, I use this cheap paper for our demos. This Canson watercolor paper, and I've actually been pretty impressed with it. It's got some texture to it. It's not flat like a hot press, but it's pretty nice and pretty sturdy and doesn't lift the paper when you're lifting out pigment. So, okay, so my tape is gonna not cooperate. I'll be right back as you guys are setting up your pages too. I just gotta run across the room. Okay. New tape. So that's great, Laurel, that Andy's going to try the monsters. I think he can do a better job of creating monsters than his old aunt can do. And so I hope that he really has some fun with that assignment. Okay. Phew. Tape. Okay. So let's see. So let's try some clouds with some different colors in them. Maybe we can do some clouds that use orange and pink and blue. I find that it's easier to use the wet and wet technique to create clouds personally. And you honestly have to work pretty fast when you're working pretty large, or you're using a big brush. I don't know where my big brush went. Like this to really move paint. It's important to use the appropriate size brush for the size of paper that you're using. So if you're working large and you find that you have trouble with your paper drying up, we'll use a bigger brush, move faster, and that will help you. And you don't necessarily want a ton of water when you're working large, but when I first learned watercolor, we would use hockey brushes. This is a hockey brush. It's spelled H-A-K-E to move water to do the backgrounds, and this brush holds a lot of water too. So if you're going large, just use a larger brush. Okay, so I'm gonna do this top square. And I am going to use, let's see, where are my blues? I'm going to use Phthalo. And just kind of dab it in here at the top. Then I'm going to add some orange and maybe some pink. We'll see how this works out. This could be kind of interesting. Whoops. New pink. That might be kind of wild clouds. What do you think? Okay. So I kind of like to see where we have separations and things and use those to my advantage. So I have some light here. I'm going to take my Kleenex and kind of dab out some clouds. I actually really am liking the paper towel best here, so. And clouds are kind of, you know, weird shaped. They can be kind of long and puffy at the top. They have a lot of texture and a lot of color in them. So these kind of look like clouds. What do you think? You can try to add color after the fact. You know, I think they look pretty good as they are, but I might try to add a little bit of my gray in there. Just where it's kind of wet and where I might think there would be like a shadow. What do you think? Yay, nay? I'm just kind of tapping color in there and then just letting it spread. Of course, you could even define the top more if you want. Usually when we have, when you look at the sky, it's lighter as it gets closer to the horizon. But you could drop in some color. To give it a little bit more shape there. So I'm just kind of dragging that bead around. You could even put it down below where you might have some sky peeking out. This could be a very relaxing exercise just to play with paint and watch it spread and see how it works. I highly recommend it. It can be relaxing if it's not wholeheartedly frustrating for you. And it also can let you get to know your paint a little bit. because the different colors have different properties. Some paints are synthetic and manufactured. Some they come from a mineral. The paints that I have that I like to use that are QoR, that are commercial paints, they have some different binders in them than traditional watercolors, to my understanding. So they move paint in a different way. So this is a great exercise. You can make any color of cloud you want. Okay, so I think for another cloud, I might use this cobalt teal. So I'm making sure it's wet. So one thing that you could do with these little clouds is create little notes out of these and cut them out of your watercolor paper. If you're leaving a note for a family member, or maybe you want to send your mom a quick little note with your little watercolor painting on it, I think people would love them. So don't throw them away. Okay, so I'm going to take this cobalt teal. I'm going to kind of let it spread here. I think I need more pigment to give me a little bit. There we go. And then I'm going to take some of my gray and just dab it in here in spots, just for fun. Of course, you know what's coming next is I am going to grab a paper towel. And I'm going to dab out some clouds. And I'll try to keep the gray maybe as the bottom of the cloud. You can use your Q-tip too. I feel like this is really good for little details. Yeah, I think this would be a really fun exercise too for kids to then take a pen or something and draw in animals that they might see in their clouds. All right. Okay, so as we are finishing up here, I'd love to have any questions or issues that you're running into with making clouds or otherwise. Also, if you have some wins this week, as far as anything goes, but especially painting goes, whether you started this week or what have you, I'd love to have those too. I'm really excited because my Aunt Linda, she is painting tonight with us too, and I'm very excited. I actually got to see her today, and excited that she's doing a little painting. That's awesome. What else can I tell you that might help you guys as you're on your journey with watercolor painting? So we discussed paper. That's pretty important. And actually I can pull tape while we're doing this. Paper is pretty important. And there are, like I said, this Canson paper is pretty good. You know, I realize that people live in some areas where it's hard to get some good paper. I really love Fabriano paper. It's pretty much my favorite paper. And I use hot press a lot, but since I've started teaching watercolor, I use cold press a little bit more. It has its benefits too. It creates a lot of texture and really gives you that watercolor feel. I'm excited because I am going to be painting outdoors, and I'm trying to do that a little bit when we go camping because it's relaxing and I can do it pretty much anywhere with watercolor. And if you have an interest in doing that yourself, I can share some resources for ways that you can paint out of doors. They make some great watercolor brushes that have water in them, so you don't have to dip them in water. They already have water. My tape is taking up my paper. Ah, well. So I'll scoot this over. We can kind of see what we worked on tonight. If you need to take a screenshot, I can. Let's see if I can make. There we go. That camera go away a little bit. So feel free, if you need to take a screenshot. Okay. So thanks for tuning in tonight. If you have any questions, I'll wait here for a few seconds and see if you can pop them down there. I actually want to say thank you to my Patreon patrons. They help make it possible so I can do this. Whoops, and that's gonna go away. No, there we go. Oh, it did go away. Having a bit of a delay here. I'm not sure if it's on the computer's part or my part. Anyhow, thank you, Colin and Laurel, for being patrons and tuning in every week and making this a really fun class. As we move forward, you'll be notified when I'm going to have classes. I'll have at least 2 classes just on the YouTube channel available, and maybe 3 if we have a longer month, and 1 exclusive Patreon class as well. So thanks, Laurel. Thanks for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you next week. And I love it that you guys are here painting with me. I really do. So I hope you got something out of this class, and I hope you keep practicing those clouds. If you have questions after this live stream is over, go ahead and put them down below and I'll answer them. Or if you are in the know, you can send me a message and I will answer it there. Thank you, and I hope you have a lovely evening and a fabulous weekend. So I'll see you later. Also, if you're interested in learning a little bit about the digital program Procreate, I released a video on that this week. And even though some of the things are changing up in my schedule a little bit, I'll still be releasing videos weekly that aren't live, so you can check those out as well. So anyhow, I've talked enough. It's time for me to go. So, and that's great. I just saw your message, Jan. She said her gray came out the best for her, and I think that's awesome. That's typically how our clouds are looking anyhow. When we paint them, you know, they have a lot of gray in them, so that's good that those came out. So you keep practicing that, and I can't wait to see what you're doing. And if you guys are brave, go ahead and send me pictures of your work. I'd love to see them. So, okay, this is the third time I said I was leaving, so now I'm really going to leave. But thanks, guys. I love that you tuned in, and I will see you next week.